feeling when everyone's talking about a book and someone recommends it to you and they tell you, you're gonna love it. And then you read it and then you hate it? Yeah, that's how I felt about Normal People. Hello everyone, and welcome back or welcome to Book and Prejudice. I'm Mar, and today I'm going to be talking about Normal People. This book seemed to be the book during quarantine. Everyone was reading it. They made the BBC series. It was everywhere. And I never particularly wanted to read it, didn't really care for the series, so I never really thought of getting it. But my partner ended up buying it, and I kept noticing that everyone was reading it. It was in every single YouTuber that I saw, my friends were reading it. It was, just seemed to be everywhere. Everyone was posting pictures with this book and singing praise of it. And when my partner read it, someone whom I trust deeply, he said, "You are going to love this book." And so there I went and I read it. I read it in 4 days. I started the 1st of September, and by the 4th of September I was done. And when I finished that book, I realized that I genuinely did not like it. And that's kind of hard. It's really hard when everyone likes something and you don't. Because to some extent you think, well, why don't I like this? It seems to be good. It must be good because so many people liking it cannot be wrong. And on the other side, you're kind of standing there being like, why do people like this? Like, how did this become the big thing that it is? And I get why this particular book is so big. I'll explain it in a bit. I have with me my reading vlog for this book and sort of trying to understand what I didn't like. Because I think that it's very easy to say I didn't like something, but it's harder to try and understand the why. So overall I gave it 3 stars in Goodreads, and for me that's very low because I give everything 4 stars. Everything's a 4-star for me. And as I was thinking about this book, I think that the main reason I didn't like it was because I hated the characters. I hated the way they were written. I hated the way they were made to be so shallow. Especially I had this problem with Marianne. So yes, I had a big problem with Marianne because I felt like she was just a very frustrating element to the book. She didn't seem to care about anything or anyone, including herself, which I found the most toxic. And she just seemed to thrive off of toxic environments, driving those around her to those. And Conan on his side, I got so angry because I could see so much potential for development for him as a character, and it seemed like they wanted to put him in this joke-like situation, and I didn't love that because I honestly thought that there was so much potential for this character. And then they never talked about their friends. They were briefly mentioned here and there and everywhere, but nobody went in depth into what they were, what they liked, how they reacted to their situation. Sometimes you could see an assuming from the main characters, from either Marianne or Connell, about, oh, I don't think blah 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 likes blah 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 or something like that, but you could never get a real understanding of how the feeling is. So that was just so frustrating for me because I really think that, especially in romances, friends' opinions play a really big role in them, and I was missing that. That was an element I was missing. So yes, not only did I not like the main characters, but I also wanted to hear more of the secondary characters, which you might as well just know the names because that's how much I knew from them. And I also seem to have a problem with the plot because the story, the yes, the no, the now I love you, now I hate you, now I want to see you, now I only want to have... It was so infuriating to see 2 people who each can believe whether they were suitable for each other or not. I will not share my opinion just to avoid spoilers, but you could tell that regardless there was an attraction there, and there was so much that Sally Rooney could have done with that, and she just kind of chose not to, which for me in itself was a bit of a problem. I thought that there was so much more that she could have done with these characters, by evolving them, by putting them in different plots, by making them face circumstances that perhaps were not as toxic for each other. You can't really tell as well that she could have done a lot, and she instead chose to just jump in time 5 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, and it was just frustrating because you as a reader, what I wanted to see was the little normal day-to-day activities that they did in those 2 weeks, in those 6 months, because that would allow for you to get to know them better and perhaps not feel the way I do about them. However, I think that Sally Rooney has an incredible writing style. Like style-wise, this book is excellent. It is so original. The lack of quotation marks that at the beginning was a bit confusing brings so much more intrigue and almost anxiety to the story. You can feel those characters, and that's something that not many writers achieve, and she did perfectly. And I think that the main reason I didn't like the book was because I was feeling so much pressure and tension within myself for these characters that whenever they would screw up, I just get so angry and so frustrated. Which I think was what she was meaning to do, because otherwise you don't write a book like this. But yes, so those were my biggest problems with the characters and the plot. I really did like, however, some positives, because I always think that it's important to like say the truth. And the truth is that even though I gave it 3 stars, even though I'm filming a video saying I did not like this book, there were parts I really liked. I really loved how Connell was described. That I know I just said that I didn't like how he was portrayed, but I really liked parts of him. We were able to delve a bit into his life and understand a bit better who he was as a person, because it felt very real. The problem I had with Marianne is that I could not find myself to relate to her and the way she acted, mostly because I've never been in the same circumstances she's had to be in, thankfully, but I could never fully feel empathetic towards her. I could just get angry and frustrated at her choices. With Connell, it seemed much more realistic, that awkwardness of starting a new relationship, that weirdness of moving away and starting university and suddenly being confronted with future and past and present all within one person embodied by Marianne. It felt very interesting to me. He was a great character. I thought he was really well written, and I really wish that we could have gotten much more of him, because the chapters were equally divided between the two of them, but it was Connell that pulled me in the story, that made me not put the book down, because I really wanted to see how he ended up the story. And I thought he got a great ending. I honestly think that Connell got an amazing ending in the book. Marianne, maybe not so much, but Connell did, in my opinion. So yeah, I thought that overall it was a great book, and I think I understand why it was so big. It's much more realistic for people to see a relationship like Connell's and Marianne's in today's age than they would in the 1950s, that's for sure. And probably we cannot relate to the way our grandparents met and fell in love and carried each other's photos in their locket, because now we just put it as a screensaver in our phone. But as well, you know, you can really tell from the way she wrote that she knew what she was talking about, and that knowledge of and that sense of understanding, I think, is very comforting for people when they read, to feel like they're putting into words what you've been feeling all along. And I think she did that very well. I think that the main reason why people are so entrenched and so in love with this story is because they can see themselves being reflected in these characters, whether you are more relatable to Connell like I was, or whether you are more towards Marianne. And you can really see how she really understood their mindset, and you could really see how she really understood the struggles of growing up and leaving your hometown but not wanting to leave completely, and then facing with the fact that you're an adult but not wanting that either, and making mistakes and fixing them, and sometimes not being able to fix them and learning to deal with it as well. And she did that so well that so many young people felt like finally there was a a possibility that they could be seen somewhere. And I thought that that was incredibly well done. I think that was very important to do. It's important to write these kind of books, even if people don't like them, even if I don't like them. And I'm really happy that I did read it, because even if I felt like, oh, I can't really relate much to this, I still wanted to read it. And at no point did I want to put it down. I got frustrated by it, yes, and I can honestly say I didn't like it, but I think it might be the most important book I've read this year, and it makes me almost sad that I didn't like it, because how can you not like something that had such an impact in your life? I know for a fact it was very, very impactful for me, and yet here I am talking to you guys about how I didn't like the plot, how I didn't like the characters, how I thought it was a cheesy story. But I think that's the thing with complex literature, isn't it? That you never know what you're gonna get with it. You never know how it's going to end, and therefore you need to finish the book. And then once you finish it, you're just like, I didn't like this, but you still had that need within you. And I think that Sally Rooney did an excellent job at this, and she also managed to very, very well and clearly create characters that either one or the other you can relate to, and I think that that's very hard. So there you guys have it, my review of Normal People. I hope nobody wants to kill me, and I do hope people do read it, because it is such an interesting book that even if you're like, oh, that review completely put me off, don't read it, create your own idea of it, because I have very similar reading taste to other people that have read this book, and we have widely different opinions on this piece. So yeah, that's all for this week. I hope you guys like it. I hope nobody wants to kill me, and I'll see you guys next week with another video. Goodbye.